2025 has really finished strong in terms of film releases, and now the latest film in the Knives Out series, Wake Up Dead Man, has just dropped, and I cannot wait to talk about this one with you guys. So let's get into it.
Stop! Here's what's gonna happen. Benoit frickin' Blanc and I are gonna ask you all some questions, and you're gonna answer them. We're gonna get to the bottom of who killed Monsignor Wicks and why, and then that's it.
So first and foremost, I am just a straight up fan of this series at this point. I really like Rian Johnson as a filmmaker. I think he is very inventive. I just made an in-depth video essay on his iteration of Star Wars, which was one of the most divisive film releases maybe of all time, but I really enjoyed. Then he followed that up after almost career suicide after that film with Knives Out. Just such a refreshing whodunit, which I still think is the standard for the genre. After that, we had Glass Onion, the sequel to Knives Out, which I really enjoyed when I initially watched it, and you can kind of see that in the review I did for that film. However, over time and with a subsequent rewatch, I do think it is significantly weaker than the first one. I watched the entire trilogy in one day, and it was just an absolute blast. Just recapturing the magic of this series that just feels so genius and inventive, while also paying homage to everything that has come before. Wake Up Dead Man, the latest in this trilogy, very much excited me. I thought it would at least be a fun adventure here, but I was a little bit nervous that Knives Out could perhaps be a one-hit wonder. However, I was dead wrong, because Wake Up Dead Man is the strongest film since Knives Out in this trilogy. I think it is absolutely phenomenal from start to finish, and does some very different things that keeps this trilogy very fresh. The mystery here is completely different. The other two have this big ensemble of characters, and you're kind of suspecting who perhaps did the murder, who did it. And yes, there is that element to this film, but I would say the ensemble is significantly weaker and is less focused on compared to the other two. And that can sometimes be at its detriment, because these films are known for having big ensembles, and that is somewhat advertised in this film. So I would say right off the bat that the biggest drawback to Wake Up Dead Man is the ensemble itself does take a bit of a step back, and some of them feel more or less like glorified cameos rather than fully fledged roles. And with the other two Knives Out films, Rian Johnson did a great job of making sure that almost everyone in this ensemble has a viable reason for committing the murder. That doesn't quite feel like the case here. There is a little bit of suspicion whether it was just a team effort here, but mostly this is really centered on a few characters, and that's completely fine, because I think the film is really excellent and really refreshing because of it. The film more or less focuses on the dynamic between Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc, one of the most iconic whodunit characters at this point, teaming up with Josh O'Connor, who is a man that has been converted by faith and is trying to right the wrongs in his life through that. There is something very compelling here, and the film also has you questioning whether this character that you're with the whole time is the person that did it, because he has a very guilty conscience. He's kind of indoctrinated into this church that is run by more or less a psychopath played by Josh Brolin, who is absolutely excellent in this film. He's so wildly unpredictable here, and it's something unlike I haven't really seen from him before. I think he was so great, and the mystery involving this murder, I think, just gets more and more interesting and layered as it progresses and becomes totally unpredictable. There are moments that are just outlandish, but then they all make sense when all the pieces start coming together. It's always a bit of a weary topic whenever a Hollywood film wants to cover religion and faith. Usually they do have a one-sided view of things, and usually like to talk down on religion and the negative aspects that it has produced. And while that is definitely a cause for merit and a discussion point, there are also many good things about it that don't often get considered enough in a lot of these films. And I think Wake Up Dead Man perfectly harmonizes the two here, with Benoit Blanc being a complete skeptic, not believing in it at all or the power of it, while Josh O'Connor is completely won over and converted by it. And they're both excellent characters that are well written, quite nuanced, and their perspectives are fully fleshed out in such a way that it leads to a very compelling discussion within such a compelling and interesting whodunit film that just wants to have a lot of fun at the end of the day. And I wasn't kind of expecting those sorts of layers in a film like this one, but it manages to achieve it quite well. I think Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc is maybe at his best here. I think this character has a lot more doubts to him this time. He doesn't feel as sure of himself. It feels like this case is truly stumping him, and I quite like that. It should feel that way after 3 films now, that this character really feels that challenge, because the first one, he does have a bit of a challenge, but he kind of fully lets on everything he knows, and you kind of find out that he knows a lot from the very get-go. Glass onion, he completely outsmarts everyone. And in this third one, yes, he does get there in the end, as you would expect from these movies. I don't think that's necessarily a spoiler, but there is quite a challenge there. There are many doubts here, and there are characters that give you reason to believe that there is something more that warrants this concern and these doubts from Benoit Blanc. And I thought that was so interesting, and I think out of the 3 movies, as I said, this could be Daniel Craig's strongest performance as the character. I will warn you, though, that for a good portion of this movie, he's not in it at all. The first 40 or so minutes of this 2.5-hour film are really centered around Josh O'Connor and building him up as a character, which we haven't quite had from a supporting character in a Knives Out film before. You'd maybe say Ana de Armas's Marta is the closest that there has been, and I think she was absolutely incredible in that role. But Josh O'Connor here really has so much time in the spotlight, and I think Josh O'Connor is a wonderful screen presence in pretty much everything he does. So he just adds to that here in spades, and I loved following that character. I thought the first 40 minutes were compelling. I think when he is interacting with Benoit Blanc, that's compelling. And when this film goes absolutely batshit and keeps building questions all the way throughout, it just gives you a complete mindfuck of a mystery. There's going to be something very interesting on a rewatch, I think, having now known all the answers and what surrounds this mystery. But I still think it will hold up, just like the first Knives Out did. I've seen that movie 3 times now, and I know everything that has happened and who did it, and I can still go back to that movie and just have such a blast with it. And I think the same will be able to be said for Wake Up Dead Man. I think it's pretty close to that level of quality, which is insanely high, because Knives Out to me is the bar and the standard for the whodunit genre. So Wake Up Dead Man being kind of close to that is enough of a compliment to illustrate that this film has what it takes to be one of the very best in this genre. I think it's so vibrant and different and just reinvents things and shows that Rian Johnson has not run out of juice with this series. He could keep going on and have so many different ideas to just create a compelling mystery. Unlike the Hercule Poirot trilogy, which just completely flatlined pretty much from the jump, these films just completely reinvent themselves here. And I am just so excited about these movies, and I love talking about them because to me, they're just pure fun cinematic experiences, and that's all I could ask for when watching a whodunit like this. I highly recommend you check out Wake Up Dead Man. I loved the vibe to it. I love the discussion on the church and religion and how compelling and nuanced that conversation gets. I love the mystery surrounding it and how fun that is. Yes, the supporting characters, which are quite weak, do add something to this film. There's some level of humor that these characters bring that I quite enjoyed. I think Glenn Close is probably the strongest out of the supporting players outside of Daniel Craig and Josh O'Connor. And I think she is great in what she manages to deliver. Also outside of Josh Brolin as well, because he is incredible too, being this almost authoritarian church leader that is so unpredictable and so interesting in every single frame. And if you manage to try and stand up to him, he lashes out and tries to completely ruin you. He's just such an interesting character, and the plans he has are so very interesting. When the film wants to go to some pretty trippy places, I quite enjoyed it. I was just on board for this ride. I love the production value. I love the cinematography. So much of this is outstanding, and I'm very torn with my rating here, and it's almost impossible to give one because I'm stuck between two very, very high ratings. But I think today I'm going to give Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery, a strong 4.5 out of 5. Because this film is wonderful in every sense of the word, and I highly recommend you check out. I mean, if you have enjoyed the first two Knives Out movies, you're just going to love this. That's a given. And I think if you're new to this series, you don't really need to start with the first or the second or whatever. They're their own self-contained mysteries, which can be quite cool. But I personally would like a little bit more of a through line with these three, but nonetheless, this film is still excellent, and if you haven't seen the other two movies, you can jump straight in here and have a blast with it, because these films are just pure cinematic fun that you just should check out. And those are my thoughts towards Wake Up Dead Man. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Where would you rank this in terms of the Knives Out trilogy? I kind of think the first is the best. This is a close second, and then Glass Onion is third. But I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and if you really love the channel, please consider becoming a member. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.